Hello everybody! It is finally here. I am finally releasing my sock collection. Dun 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 dun. Okay, enough about that. Okay, so yes, if you guys are coming here not from my Instagram or whatever other page, my name is Meridian, and I'm finally releasing my sock collection after quite a while, and it is Manhattan themed. So I will be releasing, four different kind of socks, and they have different colors and all that stuff, and then you can see them down below, what kind of socks or what designs I'll be releasing. And so basically these socks are going to be $25 retail, but if you order them now during the pre-sale phase, the pre-order phase, they'll be $20 in shipping. So instead of $25 in shipping, you get the $5 discount of being here early, because while I have all of them ready, they're still in the prototype phase, but they're like basically good enough to start like selling it, because I have all of the concepts pretty much done and like ready to go. So I'm really excited about this collection, because not only is it something that I've been trying to do for a long time, it's something that I think is going to really hit like, people who've been looking for, these thigh-high slash knee-high socks and whatever. A lot of people, when they want like cute thigh-highs and designs and stuff like that, they really ask for like plus size, and I think I have accomplished that. So this is the blank template of the socks before I start printing on them, and this is what it looks like. And then basically, if you haven't been on my Instagram and you're coming from Facebook or like wherever else this is going to be posted and stuff, this is the sock, and then it should really be able to stretch for plus size. So I'm very, 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 very excited about that, because I know for a lot of people in the J fashion niche, getting things in plus size, especially printed thigh highs, is hard to come by, because people who are manufacturing, their thigh highs and socks are going through a manufacturer that they don't provide plus size socks and stuff like that. So what I had to do was I had to buy my own machines and make it myself. Okay. So yes, these will be thigh highs that are at my best one size fit all, so that it can fit both lanky people like me, but also have the same ability to go for plus size. And some of my plus size friends have tested this out for me, and it works well for them. We don't really have a anti-roll issue just yet, but I mean, at least it'll fit without choking your thighs. But that is in the making for that. So yeah, if you are ready to buy, you can go ahead. There's going to be like a thing here, or maybe it's on this side of the video. I don't remember because I'm like mirrored right now. Okay, but there'll be a place to purchase it there, and then you can see all below the designs of me wearing the socks in my backyard, since it was just it's just so that we can give you images of the concept, so that you're able to purchase with confidence of like what the product looks like, rather than just an idea. So I'm really, really excited for this, because I did a mini version of this pre-sale maybe like back in April, and I was hoping that by the end of May I would have the socks, and now it's like the end of July, beginning of August. So that took quite the while for me to figure out like how to use the machines and like get it functional and working, and then just balancing life in general. But they're here now, and if you would like to order, go ahead and take a look at the gallery below, and then fill in your info here, or maybe it's here. I don't remember what side of the video it's going to be on, but yes. Very exciting. So yeah, if you want to know more about the socks, you can just keep watching this video, and it's just going to play while you place your order and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk about my socks, because I'm very excited about my socks. So basically, when I started like getting into J fashion, like in high school, which was like years ago, I always like wanted to have my own fashion line, and it took me a while to get here. Here I am now. And when I started Umelixir, I started with like making jewelry and stuff. So like, for example, like necklaces. Maybe I should just like take it off. the rag. Okay, I'll be right back. Those are harder to take off. Okay, I'm back. So basically, when I started Umelixir, I started off, let me like sit in the correct frame here. Basically, when I started off with like acrylic jewelry, and of course I also make these. These are all laser cut acrylic, and yeah, so you know, so these are like some of my designs and stuff. And then, you know, I always wanted to also get into clothing, but of course that involves more manufacturing know-how and stuff like that. But something that I always really dreamed about when I had my own J Fashion brand was that I didn't want to be a random store like on Etsy. Not that there's anything wrong with Etsy, but that a random store on Etsy, art, you know, the artist on Etsy, where I'm not able to deliver right away. Because sometimes when you want to buy from someone on Etsy, um, oftentimes it's like you have to order it, and then you have to wait a long time for it to get made and then for it to get shipped. And or sometimes Etsy artists don't reply because they don't manage their store like a business where they're there every day, because they of course have a life, and then the Etsy thing is something on the side. So when I decided that I wanted to start Umelixir and then like branch into J Fashion, I really wanted my products to be available and shoppable, and basically it would be kind of similar to like a retail turnaround time where you can order it online and then get it to your door in like a week or 2 weeks. Depends on like if you're international or like, you know, near me or whatever. But that is kind of the concept behind like the concept behind what I wanted to do with this brand as far as product and delivery, was really to match retail standards as far as quality, but also deliverability and availability. Other than that, since it is an artist brand, there are other things that I wanted to talk about, of course, like, you know, if you did notice that a lot of these stuff is like, you know, like this is a razor, this is a pill, this is like a band-aid, and then so, if you're not familiar with Manheta, it is a J Fashion brand, or it is a J Fashion niche that revolves around using medical imagery to kind of open up a conversation about mental health, which in Japan is really taboo to talk about. But when you're wearing this kind of imagery, whether it's like, you know, cutesy, some of them get to like cute, gory, kawaii gore kind of style. It starts a conversation where people start to wonder like, oh, why you're wearing that, or like, you know, they realize there's a theme about an outfit, and they want to ask, you know, about that outfit and like what inspired you to wear it. And so people are able to talk about mental health and like other issues that they may be dealing with, etc. And so it is something that really struck with me. And when I decided to start my J Fashion brand, which is now called Umelixir, I decided to open it with Manheta, and I'm really excited to go forward with the projects that I have in mind for being able to promote mental health and end stigmas against illness and stuff like that. So that will be a video for another time. But that is what inspired, of course, this Manheta collection of the jewelry that I sell, but also now the socks that I'm going to be releasing. So yeah, okay, so about the socks. As far as the manufacturing process goes, I know that's a question that a lot of people do ask, and if you haven't been following me on my Instagram story, I will be detailing that here as quick as I can in this video. Basically, when I started with these socks, I did have the idea that I really wanted to make sure that I can cater to the plus size crowd who has been asking about that, since, you know, when you buy from different brands, it's not always available, especially since artists are kind of controlled by the outside manufacturers not being able to, you know, make other options available to smaller artists who can't order large quantities of things, so they get really limited. That's another reason why I decided to buy my own machines and bring it into my house and learn how to use all the machines in order to be able to produce this kind of stuff and not have the limitations that a normal artist working with another manufacturer would have. So going forward, as I take these out of prototype into production phase, I would also really like to offer manufacturing services to artists who are looking to make socks that can go plus size and all that stuff. So, which is really exciting for me. So if you're an artist and you would like to produce socks and have it be available for plus size, hit me up. I will be creating a list, and then I'm hoping to have manufacturing capabilities within a month or two for people outside of just myself and my own brand in my house. So that's that. Okay, so let's talk about the manufacturing process of these socks. Yeah, so it took me a long time to get these socks made. I started manufacturing my jewelry and stuff last year in June of 2017, so it's now July 2018, so it's been a little over a year since I actually started the brand in the physical realm and took it out of the imaginary realm. I had exhibited at Anime Expo, and then I didn't have an online brand or anything like online presence or anything like that yet. It was just like, Anime Expo's coming up and I have a booth and I haven't gotten anything done. So I like pumped out as many designs as I possibly could, cut them all out with my laser cutter, and like had to learn how to use the laser cutter at the same time. And I did make it in time to make a lot of product for Anime Expo and to fill my table with. And then fast forward to November when I finally got time with, between work and, all this stuff, to finally get down and like do a photo shoot with my friends in my jewelry, and then also take pictures of all the jewelry like on the table with like pretty backgrounds and stuff so that I can start my social media feed, which fast forward from November to January of this year, I didn't actually start and launch my website until late January. So in January is when my Instagram and website were officially launched and existing in the world, as far as not just filling up closet space collecting dust. So that is that. But as I was using the laser cutter and I started to make jewelry and stuff, the learning curve was actually pretty easy as far as that goes, because I have a little bit of experience with that kind of stuff. And when I was getting into October, November is when I actually purchased the sublimation printer so that I would be able to manufacture socks and then of course print on t-shirts and do custom fabrics and other things in the future. There's many applications for sublimation printing, but basically I bought that printer in October or November of last year, and it took me that long to finally get my first freaking prototypes done. Yeah, when I got the printer, like I bought it in October, and then of course the manufacturer has to manufacture it, and then it has to ship from, I got it from China, and then it got shipped here, and I live in California. And then, yeah, so it got shipped, and then so it arrived in like end of November, early December. And then it wasn't until January, because I have several machines in my garage, by the way, that I actually went through and I hired an electrician to go to my garage and then like give every machine its own plug and its own circuit breakers so that the house doesn't blow up. Because these are industrial grade machines. I'll probably leave some pictures like in the video so you guys can have an idea of what I'm talking about and what this all looks like if you haven't already been following me on my Instagram. If you want to follow me on my Instagram, it's at Umalixer. And I post a lot about it on story and stuff so that you can see. And I have a couple of IGTVs of doing like a garage tour and like my craft room tour and all that stuff, where you can have an idea of the work that I've put into this. But yeah, so basically all of the machines in my garage are industrial grade machines. Large businesses and corporations would actually buy these kinds of machines in order to mass produce, product that goes to like Target or like, big retail brand stores. And so these machines are not hobby toys. They're not like mini things. They are a real investment that took a lot of effort and work for me to earn and get. And so that I can accomplish the things that I've wanted to do, making plus size socks and not being limited as an artist. I really wanted to have unlimited ability to make what it is that I'm thinking of and like really bring it into reality and not have other things stop me, other than like the laws of physics or something. But yeah, so I hired an electrician so that every machine can have its own circuit breaker and like wire and stuff like that, so that when I turn it on, it's not gonna blow up and it's not gonna shut down because my house caused a blackout on the whole street or something like that. And so that was in January. So even though I received the printer itself in early December, late November, it wasn't until mid-January that I was able to functionally have all of the machines turn on. And then as I was working, I used to be a full-time freelance graphic designer, and I made quite a hefty income from that. And so I didn't want to give it up just quite yet, but after months and months of trying to make the sublimation printer work, when I decided to launch my brand Umelixir in January, that's when I kind of started attending conventions again and actually starting to talk to people and like stop working so hard, like as far as just on the money side. I was trying to do more events and networking and like get exposure for the brand. And then of course I'm doing a lot more online work now that I'm maintaining a social media feed and I was maintaining my website and stuff like that. So then I had to balance, you know, my graphic design work with the Umelixir work, and eventually it came to a standstill because doing both of that and then trying to figure out a machine and how to make the machine work, while also trying to be nocturnal so that I can talk to China about getting the printer to it was a lot of time juggling, and it was not really feasible for me to be able to work on the printer and learn how to use it with you know, ample proper time, because half the week I would be working and the other half the week I would be going to conventions and preparing for the conventions and stuff like that. And then I would have like Wednesday in the middle of the week to be able to try to use the printer and fail, because until I quit graphic design, freelancing, and kind of throwing my stable income out the window and taking the leap of faith into doing, you know, what are my passions, for Umelixir, this business, and a couple of other projects that I have in mind. It was really not feasible to try to do all of that at once, and so I saved up enough during graphic design to kind of last me a little bit while I figured out how to use the printer. And in the end, I still had to take the printer to a technician because there was just some things that weren't functional with it. I'm kind of upset because the printer that I got, like the one that bought the machines, I was intending for them to last me a very long time and then I would not need an upgrade. So I got like the biggest ones that I would ever want, and then like not have to upgrade unless I'm like super rich or something. So I already want to upgrade my printer because after I brought it to the technician, which I had to pay quite a bit for on top of what I already paid for that printer, to get it fixed, there were just some things about the hardware of the printer that aren't the greatest things, and I'm not really happy about that, but it's enough to get me started to, you know, produce my socks and stuff like that, so I'm happy for now. But yeah, so when I started using the printer, after it can turn on and actually print ink, because it took me months, like from January until May, before I took it to the technician, of trying to even get it to print ink. It was a very grueling process of trying to figure out how to use that printer. And the fact that it didn't function right out of the box, it's not like you go to Target, you get a coffee machine, and then it comes with instructions and it works right out of the box. I had to build the machine, and it didn't have a manual, and like when I took it out of the box I had to assemble it, and then I had to like install the inks and I had to install these things, and then like after I did all that, and then, you know, I turned it on and then I plugged the computer in and like all the software stuff, it's like it wouldn't print. Like it would print, like it would move the printer head, but the ink wouldn't come out and go on the paper. So it was like a lot of months of trying to figure out how to make that work, and after, you know, and it was like I could only do it for a couple hours once a week. And then it's like if something happens on that Wednesday that I get to work on my printer, like I need to run errands for my mom, or like, you know, something happens, then it's like a week goes by and I can't touch the printer, and then another week goes by, and then suddenly a month goes by and then I don't even get to touch the printer. And so it was like so it came to a point where I decided that I needed to leave my graphic design freelance job if I wanted to make this work. And then after I left, and then I was there you know, with my printer every single day for like 16 freaking hours, like trying to make it work. It just wouldn't work. And I was really upset. And so I had to find someone that I could ask for help. You know, and sublimation printing is not something that is easily, they don't really have tutorials on that on YouTube. You know, it's like when I did laser cutting, it was an easier learning curve because that's a hobbyist thing. And there's a lot of people that do businesses for it too, where, but a lot of hobbyists can also make videos and stuff on it. So it's a really big thing, laser cutting is, and then 3D printing as well. But as far as like sublimation printing goes, that's still like an industrial process. It's not something that hobbyists really do. So it's like there's like no content on YouTube for sublimation printing. There's like a, you know, like an informational process, you know, like 30-second videos here and there, but there's really not like troubleshooting tutorials, you know, how-tos and like all that kind of stuff available. So it was really difficult for me to figure this out. Versus like the laser cutter, I was able to figure out like in about a week or two how the machine works, how to function it, you know, based on tutorials on YouTube. But then like the sublimation printer was just like, it was just freaking broken when I received it. And after I assembled it, and like I've been talking to them and talking to them and talking to them, and like I brought it to a technician, and then within the week it was functional. And then after that, there are settings that need to be adjusted in order to fine-tune the ink and printing and stuff. So unlike a printer that you would buy from like Office Depot or like whatever your local office supply stores are, you know, when you buy a printer and you print it, you know, whatever it's on screen, it generally looks like that on the printer. On a sublimation printer, it doesn't come like that. There are settings that need to be adjusted. You know, they're called color profiles, and you need to adjust those settings in order to get colors that look good. And so getting it to function in the first place was one thing. And then getting it to do a good color payoff is another thing. So it's like, I'll show you a little bit of my process here, which I've been detailing for the past like 2 weeks on my Instagram story. But it's like when I would print things, for example, it's like my end result for my rainbow sock. I decided to do the rainbow sock during the testing because it had like most of the colors that I would need for this collection, which is like the rainbow, obviously. So this is my end result, and then when you wear it, the color stretches out and it gets lighter, so it would look like this. So for comparison, so okay, like it's reversed, but obviously you can tell that the sock is darker than this printout. But basically, when you wear the sock and the color stretches out, it's this pastel rainbow that I was going for. And so color matching the inks to look, first of all, pretty, but then also with different fabric applications and getting different color payoffs and stuff was quite the amount of testing that I had to do. So of course, when I started doing sublimation printing, you know, you have this purple, and then you have this really ugly green, and like this brown looking orange, and then this pink that is totally this salmon color. I don't know, man, but right out of the printer it would come out to be looking something like this. And so it was like, yeah, that's totally a pretty orange, guys. Like, no. So when I started printing, I had to figure out how to adjust the ink settings and test the colors several times over in order to figure out, you know, how to get the results that I wanted. And so when I was doing this at the same time, because sublimation printing is a process where first you print on paper, then you cut the paper out, and then you take the paper to what is like a gigantic iron oven. It's called a heat press. And basically you would lay out, you know, your blank socks flat, and then you would put the piece of paper with the ink side down on top of the sock or whatever thing you're printing on, and then the heat iron bed will come down and press it, and then the ink will transfer on. And so in that process, not only do you have to change the ink settings, there are temperature settings, and even the amount of time that the heat press is on the fabric transferring the ink that matters. And I have like maybe 9 socks or something, like 9 of these, where it's like no matter how much I change the ink setting, I would have this like really faded, blotchy, watercolor looking, gross, not attractive ink transfer, and I was very upset trying to figure out why that was, and so scoured the internet for blogs about it because they don't got videos with these tutorials. In the future, I will be doing like a lot of tutorials about this process so that people can learn this kind of stuff. Like, it's really helpful for me when I was learning laser cutting to have this information. It would be really helpful for other people, of course. For sublimation printing, if you want to get into that, and I will be launching a course on that pretty soon as well, but that's something I also wanted to do, was teach a lot. But you know, so I would get these blotchy prints, you know, and they would be like super faded. So you know, it's like after a couple adjustments from temperature and time, I got from blotchy to not so blotchy, but then it was still faded. So it's like, you know, there's lots of settings that I had to change up and figure out. And so it was like, when I got the correct settings, I was able to get a nice dark color payoff. And so that's where it started. Once I finally was able to get the correct settings for the ink to transfer properly, I started adjusting the ink levels so that it would print a little bit lighter, so that of course I can get a pastel rainbow. And so I was really happy with this color, and then it was like, when I tested it on this fabric, so that I wouldn't use up all of my sock samples, I was like excited because it was like, yes, so you look pretty similar, you got this pastel look going on, and I was really happy with my first prototype. This was the very first accomplished prototype where it was like, yes, the colors on here are pretty. It is a rainbow sock. It has full color. It's not blotchy. It's not a brown orange and like a salmon colored red orange thing. It was like, the colors are pretty. It's my first good prototype. Then of course I go to wear it and the colors fade dramatically, and it's like, wow, it's transparent. I can actually see through this pink and see my skin. And it was like, oh, okay, so now I have to adjust the levels back and then test it so that as it gets darker and I wear it, then does it look like this color? And so when I wear it, it does look like this color, the lighter pastels that I was going for. So, which is really nice. It just means I print really dark first. So that is the process of like doing that, and then of course I was like testing a bunch of colors, like trying to figure out, okay, if I need to do adjustments on the printer versus do I need to do adjustments in the software and pick the correct like hex codes, lab colors, etc. And so there was a lot of testing that went through after I was finally able to get the sublimation printer to print, and I have like 30 of like this same pastel rainbow zombie sock in like different ugly colors until it finally got better. But yeah, so it's like, that was the process. It was like, it's a lot of trial and error and all that kind of stuff. And like even before that, it was like when I was starting to work with the printer, I was like trying to test like what kind of socks that I can use, and it was like, in the end I settled, this is my sock product. But it was like, you know, I tried different socks. Like for example, this sock would look pretty cool, right? Like it's so much bigger and it would fit, and it's like longer and it would fit plus size and stuff like that. But it's like when I actually printed on it, you can see that after you wear it, you have a lot of white streaks in the middle, and so it becomes unattractive when you wear it. So it's like, even though I really fell in love with this sock prototype before I printed on it, it was like, I can't really sell this sock when it's gonna like have white stripes down the middle everywhere. Because it's like, you know, with this sock, for example, the fabric is thinner, it is smaller, but it still will fit plus size, so I had to settle for this one. Amongst like maybe 10 different types of socks I bought from different companies, where it's like, when you wear this, it's like, sure, it has the whiteness in it, but it's not as drastic. It's not as drastic. So of course, like when you wear this pastel zombie sock, it looks like opaque here. but when you wear it, it gets pastel lighter. But it doesn't have like white streaks down the middle, very obviously showing. So, and then it's like, of course, you have skin behind it, then it's like not, you don't see light that comes through it, but I had to settle for this one. And it's like, as I improve, of course, I will be testing different types of sock samples and things like that for when I can, you know, expand into a better sock product, etc., something like that. So that is that manufacturing process of figuring out, first of all, I need a sock that is plus size, but also gonna have good color payoff and stuff like that. And then after I finally got the color payoff that I was looking for in the zombie sock, then I started to print all the other socks, which, you know, I had drawn and designed with my friend back in sometime a couple months ago, maybe like 2 or 3 months ago. I started designing socks with my friend so that we can, of course, have designs to print and stuff like that. So, yeah. Okay, that's the manufacturing process. Let me go over parts of the product itself on the sock because for quality issues, I suppose. The reason why it's a pre-sale is because obviously these are still prototypes. It's like, but this looks good. Like I can buy this and like, you know, I can sell this and stuff. But there are there are errors in, you know, some of them where it's like I would like to refine them before I launch them, but it's not going to take like another million years of trying to figure out how to make the printer work. There's some other disasters of like trying to figure out how to make the printer to work that I haven't said about yet, but another time. So it's like, okay, first of all, let's see. Let's talk about this one. So the red colors are something that I have to edit, for example. When I did a color profile for the rainbow zombie sock, it's like, yes, it looks good and it's neutral for quite the range of colors, but it actually really sucks at printing red. So if, for example, you can see this, this is the color profile availability gamut, whatever you want to call it, for the zombie sock and the rest of the socks actually. And so when I printed that, the reds that would come out of the same settings look like this, which is pretty freaking horrendous. It's really ugly. None of these are any good reds, and I'm gonna tell you right now that none of these reds came from this chart right here. And so I had to make a completely separate profile that butchered all the other colors but made red look really good. And so when I got the red to look really good, I printed all the red ones out. So this one, for example, is another one, and then I even have the red bunny sock, and I have like the red zombie socks as well. And so when I printed them out, I had everything printed out so that I would be able to take pictures of them and, you know, sell you the idea. Down below you can see the gallery down there. But they're not finished prototypes. They're just enough to give you an idea. Because a couple setting tweaks is probably like another week or so for like, you know, getting it perfect. Or at least to standard that I'm looking for in the product quality that I want to give you. So I made the profile for reds, but the thing about the profile that I did for the reds is that the ink is so heavy that when it goes through the heat press, only half the ink transfers through, and then there's like more ink left on the paper, if that makes sense. I'll have to take pictures or something of it for another time, but basically I'm printing and using twice as much ink versus what I actually need to get, you know, for example, a transfer like this or these uses about half as much ink as doing the prototypes that I did for this, since I was just playing with the settings still. It's just that since I got a decent red, I printed all of these out so that, of course, I can show a prototype of it. So a couple of things about printing too much ink or like errors that can occur, like is like uneven transferring, for example. So you can see here like the black is kind of splotchy, and that's something I don't want. I want it to be more even. and so the ink needs to also be even as well. So I will be editing the color profile for the red inks so that I will be able to properly have the transfers look good. You can see those same issues here. And then some other things that I wanted to talk about was stuff that aren't actually defects. For example, up here in the sock band area, it's like a thicker area versus here where it's thin. When the heat press presses it on and you have this line here where the ink doesn't go all the way, that's not really a defect. It's a nature of sublimation printing where it can really only sublimate print on the surfaces that the paper will touch. So that is not considered a defect. And so you can see in the bunny ears here too, that is not considered a defect. That is the nature of the printing, and that's not something that I can change. So that's something to look out for when you receive your sock. That's not a defect. Sometimes it presses pretty well, so it's not so bad. I'm hoping that when I adjust the ink settings on the red, it can be a little more even. Because if you see it on the pink one here, it's also pretty even, but there are times when it won't. Another thing about the manufacturing process is that when the heat press goes down, it's basically a gigantic iron that goes down and it presses everything very flat. So if you want the colors, you know, like the sock, for example, to be printed on, the sock needs to also be flat. Because if the sock is wrinkled, let me see if I can get the version that I wanted to show you. If the sock is wrinkled, for example, so you can see a couple wrinkles here, like there's this wrinkle here, you know? If it gets ironed on flat, then the parts, the wrinkle, the folds of the wrinkle do not get printed on because it never saw the ink of the paper. It was just flat with wrinkles on it, so these wrinkles are here. So basically, I did that during the prototyping phase because it was like, I'm not going to be able to sell it anyway, so it's fine. But when I received the socks from the manufacturer, you know, I received them like this. I actually have to take it out of the package one by one, open it up, and then iron it to the best of my ability without it melting and flattening out these wrinkles. Because it's like, if this went in the heat press wrinkled like that, it would print here, and then when you open it, it would be white inside there, which you can see on this sock where you see those wrinkles there. So that's another labor thing for me. I'm not just designing these socks, sending it off to some random people, and then receiving it after it's done. Like, I'm putting a lot of work. All of this pre-work, even when I am selling the socks. I receive the socks like this. They're all wrinkled up. I take them out of the package. They're wrinkled like this. And I have to iron them before I put them into the heat press so that when you receive them, they are ironed well and the print applies well. So sometimes it will happen that even though I ironed it to the best of my ability, you will have those wrinkles that exist, and it's very small, this one at least. If it turns out like this, and it's like on the foot bottom area, it's going to pass my inspection. But it's like, if it's at the top or something, or it's like very large, then it will go into like a defect sale or something like that. I will also try to not keep it at the top. For example, on like this sock right here, there was a wrinkle right there, and so you can see that white line. I'll probably put that in a defect sale, but it's not going to be like as bad as something like the other sock that I just showed you, like pricing wise. So it's like, of course, the one that has a worse defect is going to be lower price, and the one that has a very tiny minor defect like this, then it would be less. But then it's like, if it's something as small as this, especially in the foot area where shoes cover, then that's gonna pass. Okay, Another natural thing for sublimation printing, for example, is like the edge of the sock, and then it has that wrinkle there. It's like I can't actually really iron out all of the corner wrinkles because there's like a seam on the inside where the thread and the fabric folds up on itself again. So these are natural parts of the sublimation printing at the very corners of the feet, just like at the band up here. So those are going to pass because that's not a mistake and that's not something I can do much about. Okay, another thing about these socks. Other defects that can occur that are pretty major is like if I put the paper down with the print on it and it's not aligned properly, then for example the top of the design got printed and then I actually missed the rest of the sock. If it happens at the bottom toes, it will pass, but if it happens at the top of the band here where you can totally see it, it will not pass. It will go into the defect section. So for like a sales section. So that's one. It might also be on the side because they're rectangle prints and then it got misaligned and that would go to a defect section. This is a prototype because I was testing this sock for different kind of pinks and I didn't like this pink. So that's that. Another defect that happens about having too much ink, which is why I have to edit the red profile, is that when the heat press presses the ink down, the paper is a little bit curled because it's not exactly flat. So flat like heat press flat. So when it has a slight curl and then the heat press comes down on it, the heat is already there and it starts to heat up the ink and starts to transfer it to the fabric, and so there's like ink gas in the air. And so that's when stuff like this happens, when the print starts to transfer but it doesn't fully transfer, and then by the time the heat press comes down, it presses both what was already there and then it presses the rest of the design into place. But it's hard to describe that if you haven't seen it. You should see my Instagram stories. I should probably make more tutorials and stuff, but this is the result that you get and it just looks like you're drunk, basically. But having too much ink can cause that, so I'm going to have to edit this profile definitely in order to fix that issue so that these will happen less, because it's not something I can control unless I otherwise reduce the ink. Okay, so another problem that I'm facing with the printer, and that's not something I have control over right now, but I can end it in the future with a new printer. Basically, is you have very slight skewing. Can you see it? Is it gonna focus for me? Maybe not on that one. Let me get a different example where it's more obvious. You have slight skewing where you see a ghost of a line right next to it, and this is happening on the vertical rather than on the horizontal, which is what happened with this sock. Where is it? Here. Where it was just skewed downwards. This one is skewed sideways. So you can see the extra line there, and it's skewed sideways rather than downwards. And the reason for that, and I will add a video mini clip right here because I have it on my phone. You know how when you send something to the printer from your computer and there's little motors inside the printer to move the paper so that as the printer head goes back and forth to put the ink on the paper, the little motors put the paper exactly at the correct distance and feeds it through so that it can print the picture for you. On my printer, the motor on there doesn't really do that. I actually have to stand next to my printer, and here's the video, I'm gonna put it there. I have to stand next to my printer the entire time it's printing, holding the motor and helping it turn. So it's kind of a nightmare to use my printer right now, but I can get decent product out. The only thing is that sometimes I will get that skewing because if my hand slips or, you know, like my hand gets tired or something like that, and it's like, it's not a precise science, me holding the motor, you know, versus like a computer motor where, like, you know, the steps are very, the stepper motor is exact. My hand is not exact. So, you know, even though I can get all these decent, you know, stuff out, there are lots of areas where it's like at least once per sock where my hand slips. And so if it's minor, then it's gonna pass. So for example, like the ones where it's not even gonna show up on camera because you can barely see it. There. You can see it. You can see it there. These are gonna pass. But if it slips so much that it looks like, where's the other one? It looks like this. See how there's like 3 or 4 lines? Then that's gonna go to the defect section. But for the most part, you really only see it on these socks because of like the amount of detail that's in it. It's very hard to see it on these socks, so you're not gonna have to worry about it there. On this sock, this would be too much blur, so that would go in a defect section. Something like this, see how, can it focus? This line is crisper than that line. That is gonna pass. So it's like really, that's something that I'm going through right now with my printer, trying to figure out. But those are things that you can expect from the sock as far as those go. So basically, defects include major fold lines like that. So that's a defect. Major defect is major blurring of the fabric. Print. Not defects. This is not a defect. And like toe misalignments are not, like, that's not a defect. And then like because of the seam, there's like a white in the middle, that's not a defect. So those are not defects. Okay, so that's just me being transparent about why my socks are in prototype, and what to expect from like the quality that you're gonna be receiving from the socks. If you're concerned about like me saying that a minor blur is not a defect, I'm not calling anyone out, but this is a sock that I've bought from another artist, and that's the blur there. And they're sending it to a big manufacturer that is not turning their thing by hand, by the way. And this is sold to me at full price, not defected. So I'm gonna do it the same way. It's not a defect, and in the future, when I get another printer, or if I can install a new motor or something on my printer, then the quality will improve. But for now, the minor ones, the minor skewing is not going to be a defect, but it's like something as big as this is actually like, I'm not even going to let something as big as that go through. It's only smaller. Yeah, so that's that. Moving on, I will talk about a couple of edits that I want to do to the designs. As far as the medical kit design goes, the design is pretty solid. That's what it's gonna be. Same with the heartbeats. The heartbeat designs are not gonna change very much at all. They're not gonna change at all, actually. I am going to edit the rabbit design. So on the bunny front end, it's fine, but on the back end, see the tail here? The tail is like a thin line, and I actually want to make it a thicker line because on the red one, where the red bunny tail is, it becomes really hard to see the red tail on a black background. It's really easy to see it on this one because it's dark on light, but I'm gonna make the line thicker so that the design will be easier to see. So that will be the edit for the bunny one. And then for the zombie socks, the zombie stitching socks, something my friend mentioned was that, oh, the purple is only on the toe, can it be higher up? Basically, I'm going to do that. I'm going to reduce the amount of like mint and a little bit of the blue. So I'm just going to reduce the overall, like the huge chunks taking up all of the color space, and then like increase the purple. So in reflection, the design is over here will also be altered so that, you know, it will be a little higher up. And then same thing with this red one, so it'll be higher up. The splotchiness, like I said, is a thing that is an issue with my red colors, and I will be fixing that. You will not receive splotchy things. Okay, so that is the presentation of like my socks and like the defects and the journey of me getting here, and a couple of things that I am looking to improve before the sale is complete. The pre-order sale is complete, and yeah, so that's that. These are my socks. I mean, you know, there might be a couple of blurs, and I'm really sad about that. It's not like I'm like happy about that, but when you wear it, you don't really see it. Oh, one more thing I did want to mention is that because of the nature of heat pressing, not something that I can change. For example, like, you know, the alignment here, you cannot match it 100%. So if you get like these grid socks and they're like not lined up, it's not actually really possible to line them up. I mean, I have other socks that are striped this way, you know, horizontally, and the stripes don't line up. That's not something that, you know, like the zombie socks, for example, it's not like they're lined up. That's not feasible. It's kind of like, you know, if you get like a striped dress and then you want the stripes on the dress that are sewn together to be exactly, it's like not feasible unless very, very, very expensive, because then I gotta like sit there and like keep double checking to make sure the line is lined up before I press it, and then even when you press it, the paper shifts a little bit when the iron comes down. So it's really not, that's not a defect either. So without further ado, these are the things here. Okay, and the last thing I can talk about is that when you place your order, there is a little order bump up sale for those who are getting into the pre-sale. So not only do you get a $5 discount, so normally my socks will be $25 and shipping. Now it's going to be $20 and shipping when you get it early. Something that you're allowed to do now and not at any other time is that if you order now, you are allowed to also order a 50% off coupon to my site. So what it's going to be is a $25 purchase, and I will give you a $50 gift card to my site. So you pay $25 now, and you will get $50 of store credit on my site. So if you want to do that, you can do that now. Along with this, so it's like you get $25 off. So it's like in this pre-sale, you get a discounted price of being able to purchase the socks, but you also get a discount to the rest of my store if you want to purchase that. And you can use it on anything on the site, including, you know, like my jewelry and stuff, and then if you want socks to go with it. See these little cute hair clips? Yeah, so you will be able to purchase that in the order bump up sale on the side, or this side of the video. Forgot which one it's on. But yeah. Thank you guys for watching. I'm really excited about these socks. If you have any questions about my socks, about manufacturing, please send me a DM. Let me know. I will answer on my story or IGTV or something. I love questions, and it helps me get ideas for like tutorials that you guys would want in the future. Thank you so much. I'm very excited. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you for all of your support. Much love. Bye bye.